Welcome in, everyone. UGA Football Live with JC Shelton and former Georgia tight end Arthur Lynch. Artie, it's great to see you, my man. Thanks for setting aside some time for your boy here to talk a little football. Um, this is one I've been looking forward to because we're going to run through your ideas for the CFP, um, and basically setting it up to where the sport we enjoy we can still enjoy and get the most out of it. So there's a lot of changes over the last several years, even date back to the CFP beginning in 2014, and I think there's some areas for improvement. And you hear a lot about this as well. Throughout each season, I think people wanting to change some things. And I think you have a great idea. So I want to let you kind of walk us through it, brother.
Yeah, so I've been thinking a lot about this through the context of like a business lens, right? And when you talk to like any athletic director, right, whether they're an athletic director at Mercer, whether they're an athletic director at Cornell, or you're Josh Brooks at Georgia, right? You're constantly looking to find different types of revenue streams that aren't like one hit wonders, but rather consistent revenue streams year in, year out over the course of, a season, but really just like the lifetime of what the entity is. And the entity here we're talking about are college athletic programs, kind of even more specifically, the revenue generating sports. And that's not to suggest that there's not more opportunity for other sports to become revenue generating, right? Um, but as it pertains to college football, the college football playoff, and the inevitable expansion of that playoff, um, the way I have looked at it when I took a step back to be like, okay, when you think tournament, right, you think of March Madness. And when you think of March Madness specifically, that first week or two is like a ton of games. And people are betting the games. People are at work, got like two screens on. They got the office TV on, and it's like people don't. It's not really like no one's really thinking about it as like one singular event of that week, but rather like a ton of different games going on, and people are just trying to follow their bracket. I think it's impossible to replicate that from a college football perspective because football is such a week by week sport, right? You don't have Georgia winning a play-in game on Saturday to play another game on Wednesday to play another game on Saturday. And so the reason why the bowl season was A, super important for so long, and B, why people, and when I say people, I mean fans and players and coaches got so excited for them, was because it was a somewhat of a crowning achievement for the team that season and gives them an extra game to play. Before all this NIL stuff, it gave players to get somewhat compensated through bowl gifts, through travel. There's different ways to do it. That I was in that era, and then ultimately the better season you had, the better quote unquote bowl game you got, right? And so if you had a good enough season, your season was often um judged by like when your bowl game was, right? And so I take it for instance, like our three best seasons when I was a player at Georgia, we played in two Gator Bowls and then a Capital One Bowl, right? Probably not up to the standards of what Georgia fans would want, but it was three New Year's Day bowls, which traditionally speaking for your run of the mill college football program is a successful season, right? And so when I think about what this bowl game or this expanded playoff of 24 teams looks like is it's not so much by the date in which the game is played, a la New Year's bowl game, because that will still hold significance if you make it through a certain level of the playoff. But right now you have like all of these random bowl games that like have funny sponsors, the Cheez It Bowl game, right? The mayonnaise game, the Pop Tart game. And And those are all great, right? I get it, but I think when you have the expanded playoff, you automatically eliminate this concept of some of the top 24 programs in the country now playing meaningless games where their players automatically opt out, which became a thing about 4 or 5 years ago. And so how I'm viewing this expanded playoff is not just like, oh, now some of these games are meaningless, because the games are meaningless when it's 50% of the team is opting out. And so how I view it is in the top, and I was trying to create an image on old or chat GPT here, but it wasn't giving me something I liked, so I just got rid of, or Gemini I should say. But the way I've kind of designed it is you have the top 24 teams make it, right? And the top 8 teams have a bye. And in order to keep the conference championship games like matter, right? I mean, that the winner of the conference outright. So if Georgia, right? So in this instance, right? Georgia and Alabama play. The winner of that game gets the bye because they win. So it's the conference championship of the top 4 conferences, right? Get that bye. And then, so even if, because typically speaking, right, like the top 8 teams, like if you're like Alabama and Georgia, the winner of that game is going to be likely in the top 8. Not always the case, but the top 8 teams are going to get a bye, right? And then the other 14 teams are going to play in that first round, right? So how I did it to kind of walk through an example is this year the top 24 teams would be in the playoff, and that's based on the college football rankings, right? Game 1 would be Arizona versus USC, and that's just based off their rankings. That's an old Pac-12 matchup, right? That game likely would be on ESPN because ESPN has the rights to all the playoff games, but like that would be played, in a historically popular stadium, city, and it will have a specific corporate sponsor, right? Right, the Peach Bowl, right, the Chick-fil-A Bowl, or something of that nature, right? These sponsors will now will pay a larger amount of money. They'll be more legitimate, right? It won't necessarily be the Pop-Tart Bowl, but it might be like the Delta College Football like playoff round, whatever, being played at Arizona, right? Or wherever that first game is being played, or USC, depending on who is ranked higher. So each game will have a corporate sponsorship. However, the second game would have been James Madison versus Alabama. The third game would have been Houston versus BYU. Game 4 would have been Tulane versus Texas. Game 5 would have been Virginia and Vanderbilt. Game 6 would have been Georgia Tech versus Notre Dame. Game 7 would have been Iowa versus Miami. And game 8 would have been Michigan versus Utah. And typically, these games, that first round, would probably be like in or around Christmas, right? Because you're basically going to have that first round of you're gonna have that first round. Then the second round is like the Sweet 16. That 16 teams are left. The quarterfinals are the Elite 8, semifinals the 4, and the national championship is the 2 and the 1. Yeah. And I think if you look at it, like the only thing that's a little bit unfortunate is you're not going to have as many teams across the country get the benefit of playing in a quote unquote bowl game. And you as a team, if you don't get a first round bye, you might end up playing 3 or 4 bowl games. But bowl games they no longer have the same meaning as they used to, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're 6-6 and the other team's 6-6, it's like you're lucky if you can field a team.
Right.
And so this concept effectively, it allows the sponsors that are still existing to be almost like partnered with whatever playoff game that is, right? Mm-hmm. So like that the Pop-Tart Bowl game might be round 1 of the college football playoff, but that way that creates another revenue stream for the two schools, right? Everything that is associated with that bowl game becomes, is still relevant. The only thing that would be different is that those first rounds and probably that second round wouldn't necessarily be on neutral fields. They would be on the highest ranking team of the top 24 would get that home game. And that would persist for the first two rounds. And then Elite Eight, I believe, and then Final Four and two would be on neutral sites.
That would be my only thing I wanted to jump in and ask you about would be, can we get these on campus? Because that's what
100%.
I mean. I totally agree with a lot of there's fan bases across the country that are pushing for that. So I think that's great because I was going to ask just from hearing you lay it out, a con for me would be, well, we don't have them on campus, but if they are, I think I love that. So you're getting the feeling of the bowl game, you get the sponsor to still have that benefit for them, but you're still having it on campus, right?
100%. So the first two rounds would effectively be the higher ranking team gets a home game, right? Yeah. And so obviously if you're a first round bye, whenever your first game is, that's a home game, right? And there's another point to this too, is in college basketball you have like the NIT, right, which is like a secondary tournament. And so like there is a world where if they did this, like, and you wanted to have, some sort of continued like reason to play for, right, is you can have like a secondary tournament, which is if the top 24 teams, make the college football playoff, you might have like, I don't know, like name it a different tournament, right? And that's not necessarily 20, maybe that's the team 25 to 48, right?
Or how about the group of five? Do you like the group of five being able to be in this, 24 team playoff? Or, I mean, I don't have a problem with the group of five having their own. It's kind of like NIT style.
Yeah. So I haven't really thought, the way I thought about the top 24 is just like, if you're a top 24 team ranked by the college football committee, right?
So it can be Tulane, it can be
Tulane.
Boise State, right? Okay.
Right, 100%. And then, it's, if there is a secondary tournament like you have in basketball, great. But like I've just, it's when it was just four teams, right? And it was just the college football player four. It's like the fifth best team in the country, played a great bowl, but everyone opted out because they're like, there's nothing to play for.
Yep.
And in this instance, when you have 24 teams that are fundamentally, yes, like if James Madison might not have a very strong probability of winning national championship, but I would be willing to bet that not one person is going to opt out of that because, you never say never, right? And there is always something to play for, right? Now, there is risk, right? Because you're playing more football games. And I think you'd have to start tailoring this back to, okay, well, if you're a Division I team, you're not allowed to play 1AA teams anymore, right? You're going to play one less game maybe, right, during the season. So Georgia would play 11 regular season games. Every SEC team would play 11 regular season games. There would be a one additional game if you play in the SEC championship game, and then so on and so forth. Because at the end of the day, this is making the college football season actually longer by having a 2014 playoff. But Georgia would no longer play, Abilene Christian or whatever they,
right.
Whoever, right? And I think that's also a problem that needs to be solved because, like, no one likes. I don't even watch those games, right? Like, and you probably, I mean, I know you're of course you probably do. Like, you watch every single one, but like. I just check the highlights, and I think like this creates a better quality of football across the entire spectrum of major Division I football, right? Yep. Because it makes the regular season matter because you're no longer playing those cupcake games, right? You're probably playing a majority, an 8 or 9 SEC schedule or Big 12 schedule or Big 10 schedule, and then you think about like, okay, well, those two non-conference matchups, one is typically going to be a rival, in our case, Georgia Tech. And then maybe, as we continue to look at like what does this league look like in a professionalized college football, is the SEC and the Big 12 and the Big 10 of the SEC, or the ACC, I think, like, have rotate, right? They rotate for those like two open slots for the league. So it's like, if you notice, right, in the NFL, if you're like the AFC East will rotate every 4 years of like the NFC adjacent, right? And that's how it would look. So every 4 years or 2 years, right, the SEC would rotate out the ACC and the Big 12 for the Big 10, and so on and so forth. And I think that's kind of how you keep every single game during the season super competitive, right? Yep. You eliminate this idea of like you have to be undefeated to be a top four team. Well, if you played an absolute gauntlet of a schedule because you're no longer playing these cupcakes, right? And every single week you're playing, you could effectively lose 3 games, 4 games, and be ranked top 12 and still get a bye, right? Yeah. Or not bye, but like a home field advantage. And so I think everyone thinks of this like college football bracket as like creating a problem of like lopsided victories. And what I'm saying is we already have that problem in college football. When you flick on a TV and you're like, oh, I didn't know there was a bowl game today. It's the Pop-Tart game. Well, you didn't know because no one cared, right? Yeah. But if you have, a substantial amount of college football games in the postseason that matter, you're kind of eliminating this concept of like, well, bowl games don't matter, because now every single bowl game is effectively a playoff game and they do matter.
Right. I like all those things because that's the issue that I have. We've taken the regular season. It's not as intense on a week-to-week basis. So I don't know how being able to lose multiple games, if it will kind of keep the issue that we're having there or not. Having something to fight for, like a bye, like the opportunity to have, let's say I'm not going to be undefeated this season or I'm going to lose multiple, but I'm still fighting for the opportunity to be in the top and maybe have a home game as opposed to not. I like that. Taking the postseason and making every bowl game like that important too. That's something that we're going to love to see, because right now, like you said, bowl games are coming on. No one knows they're on. And it could be traditionally really good teams, like teams that draw eyes, like USC. They play in a bowl game, and look at the viewership on that, right? It used to be so important and so awesome in the postseason because these guys, weren't paid like they are, right? So we didn't have opt-outs. They went because they got to, and you've been through this, you got to go to a really cool place, maybe even like Hawaii, right? You get your bowl gifts, your watches or whatever best gift you got already that were really cool. So it gave this, it's a reward for a really good season. So take it back and make it that, right? So we lost out on that, and I hate it. And I think it's a large part of the reason why I talk to a lot of college football fans every day, and they're telling me, well, I don't watch it like I used to. Well, I ask why. They're like, well, the games really don't matter at the end if your team's not in the, top 12, if they're not playing in the playoffs. The bowl games, we have a lot of opt-outs, and then the players really just run the show, right? So they can opt out. And the NIL situation, they can leave my team. They can have a great season, be, hang in their jersey in the top of the stadium if they return next year and have a great season. That's the type of career they have for my school, and they're going to leave to take more money elsewhere. So it's all the issues that we're fighting as a fan base of one of the best sports in the world.
And just to hit on your point, it's like this idea of like don't matter, right? And when I did out the bracket and I looked at those first 8 games, so like we're not talking about the top 8 teams, right? So the top 8 teams in this particular instance was Indiana, Oklahoma, Oregon, Texas Tech, Georgia, Ole Miss, A&M, and Ohio State, right? So those were the buys, right? That's the second round, Sweet 16, if you will. But this first round on campus game between the remaining 14 teams, like, think about the fan bases on some of these folks. Like, how fired up would just like a
Would Tech
Georgia?
have had a home playoff game?
So Georgia Tech would have played Notre Dame at Notre Dame because
Wow, that would have been awesome.
Georgia Tech finished 22 in the rankings. Notre Dame finished 11. And so you think
Yeah,
about like, man, like how fired up would those fan bases be, right? Like, you know, another one was Arizona at USC. Like, that's a classic Pac-12 matchup, right? First off, LA is like full. LA is like Atlanta, right? You walk down the street of Atlanta, you're going to see, you know, a ton of Auburn grads, a ton of Clemson grads, a ton of whatever, like Mississippi State, Tennessee, et cetera, et cetera. LA is that way with old Pac-12 teams: Arizona, Arizona State, right? Oregon, USC, UCLA. So it's like this creates an opportunity to where your traditional top 25 teams, it's not going to be universal every year, right? But it gives like these super unique opportunities for like an additional bowl game like situation, except
yeah,
that bowl game is on someone's campus, right? So
right.
let's say like United Airlines was the corporate sponsor for like game one of that first round. It's like there you could still create this environment of a bowl game like situation where both teams get in there on like a Thursday, and then there's some like a dinner, right, or whatever there is, because that's usually how the bowl games are. It's like you have like a corporate dinner, and the local so and so talks, and the chief marketing officer of Chick-fil-A goes up there and talk. It's like you can still have all that, right? But I think in this instance, it creates a sense of urgency in the sport to where you're no longer going to have these random games, the Bahamas Bowl or whatever. It's like where you no longer have this concept of players not being able to play for something, right?
Yeah. And think
And
about too, you mentioned it earlier, if you think from a business side, Artie, think of how many more viewers that these bowl games, even the non-traditional ones like a Pop Tart, which is kind of the new fad, which has had some success in the last couple of seasons. I think it's only 2 years old. Think about the additional viewers it's going to get,
100%.
and the extra money that it gets. So it pays off for the sponsors, for the TV as well. What I think the real question, Artie, too, is like what's holding. There's so much red tape in this stuff, man. Like, what's holding it back? What do you think maybe a major con would be that someone executive wise would push back against it for?
First off, I just want to say I'm drinking Diet Ginger Ale out of that wine glass. But I'm not sitting here hammering white wine on the show. But I just realized it's like that. I still look that good. I think the one thing that you're looking at is cities, particularly cities that like probably count on these bowl games being like you know to generate
It's like the
you know
Gator Bowl in Jacksonville.
yeah, or like a good one is like like the Independence Bowl for years was in Shreveport. So like Shreveport's local economy really, it depended on that. Not dependent on it to survive throughout the year, but local hotels, restaurants, uh, you know, you name it, like local businesses. They certainly look towards that weekend like, oh, this is going to be a busy weekend for us because we are expecting two different fan bases, and I get that totally. Um, but I could also say the same, like, looking at again at these matchups, right? Like Houston would be going to BYU, right? Or Virginia would be going to Vanderbilt. Nashville would love to host that game, right? And if they're
Mhm.
expecting a larger crowd, that maybe that becomes the Nissan Stadium, like at Nissan, the new stadium in Nashville they're building for the Titans, right?
Yeah.
Right. I still think South Bend. I'm sure South Bend would appreciate an extra home game in Notre Dame. So you're still, it's there's always going to be pushback, but I think the biggest pushback comes from these corporate sponsorships and from some of these cities that for years have held or hosted these games, right? But a lot of the games um, that had been played at certain cities for a long time, like no longer even exist, right? Like, and so, I think it's worth considering because right now, the reason it's not the 2014 playoff is because there's an argument between the Big Ten or the Big Ten and the SEC, right?
Right.
So,
They have to agree on changes for the changes to be made.
100%. And I get that, but it's going to go to 24, right? I don't think it'll ever go
So you
above
don't think
24.
they've been talking about 16. That's the one that I've mentioned, like I've seen in reports from the conversation. So you think it's actually just, is it going to incrementally, like at 4 to 12, 16 one day, or do you think they're going to jump up?
No, I think it's going to go to 16 first, and then they're going to see how much money that they're actually making on these additional playoff games, and they're going to be like, well, like let's go to 24, right? Because what you're seeing right now is very similar to what you're seeing in the NFL. It was a big, big, big point of contention about adding this extra game to a season, going from 16 to 17, right? And in the introduction of the college football playoff is you were not trying to create an extra regular season game, but you were trying to create more games as it pertains to product being offered for the consumer through this college football playoff. And everyone complained, right? Everyone complained. The BCS is the better way to go, which makes no sense to me because it was some computer that would spit out the thing. And if you only two at the end, it was really only 4 teams that really had an opportunity to be a top 2. In some years, it was really only a clear cut 1 and 2 the whole entire time. Mm-hmm. But now we're like, okay, we're going to go to a playoff system of just 4. And everyone thought that was going to be the case. It's going to be 4 for the next 20 years, right? BCS, I think, lasted 20 years. Then they realized how much money they made in those 4 games. Like, well, let's go to 8, right? Let's go to, and each year after like a couple of years, they're going to see that the heightened awareness by the fan bases goes up tenfold because like, oh, well, University of Iowa or, Iowa never had a shot to go to the national championship, but now they're in the playoff because they had a really good season. Like, we're going to go watch that game. More eyes are going to be drawn to that game than if they were just playing in the Gator Bowl again for the umpteenth year, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's where you're going to start seeing the momentum. And the pushback is typically by the 2 leagues because they want to make sure that they have as many teams represented in that top whatever as they possibly can,
right?
Because it's more money for the league, right? It's not because it makes it a bad product. The product is actually getting better, right? Because all the fans are still tuning into each playoff game by the millions, right? Go look at all the games played, right?
And think about sorry to interrupt. Think about too.
No, you're good.
Adds to your point. Think about too. I mean, I would love to see every game except maybe the semifinal national championship on campus. Every game in this playoff system. Because you think about because one of the key issues to this current system is the cost for fans to go across the country to see a semifinal game or first round. Not even first round, we'll go semifinal game, quarterfinal game, right? I think having those on campus is going to be such a better opportunity for fans and the families to take kids and things. So this is what we grew up doing. This is why it's part of our lives, the sport. Taking your friends and family to these games on campus can be so much easier and hopefully more cost effective than traveling across the country to these neutral sites. Especially for the home crowds. I mean, I love that. I want to see that.
So the only pushback I'll have there is in this particular like model, the first round and second round, which is, again, the 9th ranked team to 24th, or the 8th ranked team to the 24th is the first round. Second round is the top 8 versus the winners. Those games would be on the college campuses, right? And then Elite 8 and then semifinal 1 and 2 would be, it would rotate out of these. It would be similar how it is now: Rose Bowl, Fiesta Bowl, Cotton Bowl, Peach Bowl, Fiesta Bowl, Sugar Bowl, and then those are the 6. And then
would you have a problem with it being regional? You know what I mean?
No, not
So like
at all.
the teams closest to that site would play.
So you're
So like
saying
yeah,
yes. I hit
Georgia plays Alabama somehow in these games, and they're playing in the Peach Bowl.
correct. Yeah,
I like
100%.
that. It's
Yeah,
something a little easy for travel, so people work because that's what I see is exhaustion in traveling and paying. No, not only is schools asking for you to donate NIL, but now you're having to pay thousands of dollars in travel if you want to go see your team play. And the more playoff games means more travel. So I just think we're into a point that if your team is consistently successful, that you're not going to have as much representation at these games.
yeah. I mean, totally. But at the end of the day, like there's only two games that are really out west. It's Fiesta and Rose, right?
Yeah.
Which makes and then you have the Texas and Cotton, you have the Peach Bowl, you have the Orange Bowl. So I actually like that. How like depending on like the winners of the Elite Eight, if you will, right? Whoever the Final Four are, or I guess we Final Eight are, would depend on from a regional perspective. But I just think that there's so many issues that we have in college sports, right, or in particularly college football. But I think the way you know when you have a 2014 playoff, you would really not have a stop gap, or a gap of time in between the end of the season and the playoff beginning. It would kind of
Yeah.
be like you're rolling. Now, if you have a bye, you get some time off. But in my mind as well, is the national championship would take place not on New Year's Day, but basically the first weekend of the new year, right? So like New Year's Eve and New Year's Day would be likely the final four. And
Mm-hmm.
then another thing I would always change is the national championship is always on a Saturday.
Yes, please.
So it's
Come
always
on,
on a Saturday. But like
please.
I don't think that like because ultimately you need to start the playoff pretty much as soon as the conference championship games are over
Yeah.
because you're still dealing with this window, this transfer window. And so
Mm-hmm.
you need you need the season to effectively be over before like drop ad weeks start at all of these schools, which is typically the second week of January, right?
Yeah. And I think that
And
works out. You might kill two birds, one stone, and with the transfer window. And I
like you
think
should,
you can make week 0, get away with week 0. Week 1, baby, start it. Move that.
100%.
Forget week 0. That's cool, I guess. It's not really that cool. let's just start the season one week earlier. Give us some more time to work with here. And then yes, I totally agree because already we talked about it before the national championship. The playoffs started, and 45 days later, we're going to crown a champion. Like, how messed up is that? That's over. It's a month and a half.
And I really think they got it. The regular season should be 11 games. And if you're going to do 12 games, no more like these. And I get it. Like some of the 1AA teams, they look to play up for the money and that. But it's like I just don't see the value add there. And I do believe that cutting a game back, right, and creating an 11 game schedule like we had in COVID, where it was an all SEC schedule, it was 10 games, like that was freaking awesome, right?
Mm-hmm.
So imagine like 11 game schedule, 9 games of your conference, and you have 2 games which are like it has to be a power four game, right?
You could
It doesn't
rotate,
matter.
like you said. It can be.
It gets rotated, right? So, and it's calendarized. So like, okay, like just like how it used to be in the SEC, where like we would always play Auburn every year in the West, but we would rotate that other West team or the 2 West team. Same concept, but you're playing your 9 SEC games; those will rotate, and then those 2 other games that you have for like non-conference, maybe one doesn't rotate because that's a rival, right? But that one constantly rotates, and I think that is a way to kind of, again, create a sense of urgency, create a buzz, but also kind of mitigate issues with scheduling, and not have a random game that's a blowout by halftime that like no one wants to watch. right? But if you're telling me that Georgia, this year is playing like Michigan State at home or has to go up to Michigan State, like I think that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to playing Eastern Michigan, right?
If you love football and you love your school, you're gonna love that. If you don't,
100%.
if that don't light your fire, it was just wet, son. It just is.
100%. It's like think about anyway. So that's kind of how I was thinking about it.
I like that, man. Thanks for walking that through. So and we've talked about here and there before shows, and I wanted you to lay that out for the fans. I like that, man, and hopefully we will see something similar to that, or at least solve those issues that we want to see solved. And it's just not me and you already; it's a lot of people pushing this too. That's why we're talking about it. But I totally agree. In that last part, I'll just reiterate: is not having a gap, because that takes away some of the sting, right? Some of the intensity of the season. But yeah, so I'm not a fan of the long drawn out weeks on end. I think it just takes away from the game. But and we'll touch on this real quick. So the CFP changes this year, right? Power 4 champions, you get automatic bids regardless of ranking. The interesting one is we are giving Notre Dame an automatic bid if they get ranked in the top 12. I don't know who cried on the shoulder of ESPN and CFP executive to get Notre Dame this treatment instead of, hey, join a conference and you can get these things. You can, you win your conference, you always get in. We're going to actually just give them a automatic in if they're ranked in the top 12. This is the same program that just cried and chose not to play in a bowl game. I just do not get that at all. And I haven't seen one good answer for it already. It's pissed me off. I just wanted to get on my soapbox about that real quick. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, Notre Dame they hold a lot of power because of their fan base and because of their viewership.
Artie? Why? Because you look at the ESPN, or you look at the TV numbers for NBC, not even half what like Auburn at Tennessee you get. Not even half viewership. I was looking at the numbers this year. It's ridiculous.
That's just they have that deal with NBC, and that's so they get their own contract. I mean, look, the expanding that playoff will solve that, and it's happening one way or the other. I don't know if it's going to happen in 2014, but it's certainly going to happen.
Yeah,
to at least 16.
Touchdown, Jesus. He got them.
Dude, they're part of America. I don't know. It's like they're in the fabric of American football culture. I don't know what you want me to say, but
I don't know. Say anything. You don't have to say anything. I put you on the spot with it. It just pissed me off, as you can see.
It pissed most people off. I mean, but that's just they get special treatment, man. They have a lot of money behind that university. So
right, it's like the principal's kid in your class.
Yeah, it's called nepotism.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Regardless, okay. Let's one more thing, Hardy. Let's touch on this because, interestingly enough, this has happened. We all saw it coming. It's probably happened in the past too. But Dabo Swinney has just taken one for the team, man. It's like Braveheart, He has taken in a press conference, names Pete Golding, names Ole Miss's GM, and it's just for everybody out in the open. Just like, hey, there's tampering that's going on. Somebody needs to deal with this because basically Clemson re-signs Luke Farinelli for $1 million, right? He signed. Portal's still open. Pete Golding, as a head coach now, is texting this player about coming to Ole Miss, asking how much his contract is worth. Sends him a photo that the player, right? Pete Golding sends a photo also via text, of the contract for $1 million that can be signed, right? Just to push him a little bit. He's selling. He's being a salesman, right? And then Ole Miss, after not getting what they wanted there, offers him double, just right there in the open. And then Swinney's like, "Hey, this is going on, NCAA. Why don't you take care of it?" By the way, Farinelli now plays at Ole Miss.
No, of course.
After he signed. Yeah. So he puts it out, right? So then that was the talk of the town for a minute. And then another team has joined in accusing Ole Miss of tampering as well. So that is, I mean, it obviously, right? Already, I mean, it's not surprising. It's just it's laughable, you know. I think if the College Sports Commission or the NCAA isn't able to do anything to reprimand Ole Miss and maybe set an example for all the other teams that are doing the same dang thing, then I think it's a disservice to the sport and really just, I mean, what integrity are we pushing to anyone, especially if we, you know, it's just college football. These are kids. And we're not pushing any integrity at all.
No, there's only one thing you can do: a postseason ban. Just say you can tamper all you want, but you can't play in the college football playoff.
Yeah, I love
That's
it.
it.
Simple.
That's it.
Simple, direct, and serious.
Yeah, it's like but you know that you know and that includes players, right? So like if you are part of this and then you transfer to a team that didn't do it, no, you're still banned for that season.
I love
right?
it. Yeah,
Because
and already too. What would happen if this was an NFL?
it's a good draft picks. I don't know if they would ban them from the postseason, but like
They would take your cap, right?
well, no, the owner would just get like a ridiculous fine and draft picks. And I'm trying to think of what
which can really derail progression. So it is serious.
Because the latest example of that was Steve Ross, which is kind of BS, to be honest, because I think everyone does the tampering thing. Tampering in the free agency aspect of sense, like there's a specific window in which you can talk to players, and I think he like invited Tom Brady. I don't know. It honestly, it's not as bad as this, that's for sure. Right. And he lost a first round pick, I think, or a second round pick, which is a lot in the NFL. And I think he got snipped for like 50 million or something ridiculous, right? Like,
right.
But
there's rules that are in place. You break the rules, you get punished. That's not what we're seeing right now, and it's like one of the only areas of life that we are seeing just business.
I think that's what you got to do. I think you got to do fines, and I think you got to do fines and then postseason ban.
Right, for the player and the university.
Because a postseason ban it now will cost a coach's job at a specific school, right? Imagine if Kirby did not make the top 12, right? And I'm not saying that he should ever get fired, but like if you're an SEC coach at a top 4 job and you're not in the top 12, it's like fans will come for your throat, right? I mean, and I mean, look what happened with LSU. What's his name? Dude won 10 games, was I probably would have won 10 again this year or 9, and they fired him, Kelly, because you have to be in the playoff. If it's 12.
And I'll even rewind that back too. It's like I said, postseason ban for the player. I would rather see. I mean, if you're playing, you sign a deal and then jump to another, like this kid has done, and eligible for a season. Right? We prove it. Right? It's proven. It goes through an investigation. You have to be actually guilty of this, and then eligible for a season. You can still go, but you're not playing the next season. I mean, we have to nip this in the bud.
A season's a lot, though. A season's a lot.
You sign with somebody and then you go. I don't mind it.
No, I don't disagree that it's unacceptable, but it's like I think a postseason ban would nip it in the butt pretty quickly.
For the university, it might do it too, right?
No, and the player, both.
Okay.
Because
I guess I wouldn't mind that either, but I'm okay with ineligible.
But yeah,
and so additionally on this, right? LSU, kind of another side, but still in the same area. LSU's under investigation by the College Sports Commission for unreported NIL deals, right? So people already know about the house revenue. You get $20.5 million. It'll go up this year. It's actually $21.5 now, or so. You have that money for your NIL deals for your entire sports lineup for a university. But where you add that money in is through third-party NIL deals for your players. So you say, player A, you get $300K from us this year. And then we have these suitors for you who would like to sign you to an additional NIL deal for your fund. So you could make this, but it's up to you and that third-party source. Get your fair value, whatever it is, will help set that up. But you report those deals to the commission. Basically, LSU has not been reporting them. Now, is LSU the only program that's doing that? Heck no. Heck no. But they're the first that's been under investigation by the College Sports Commission. So we're about to see if this College Sports Commission has any authority at all, which if it's like the NCAA, it doesn't. So this will be interesting already. I don't have high hopes here. But at least they're trying to do something. I think they're trying to set an example here with LSU and the Fighting Lane Kiffins.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, it comes down to the legitimacy of it. Will these and it's hard to explain. Fundamentally, the only thing that will change this is if the 100 teams in 1A sign legal documents or whatever that where they're like there needs to be a creation of a league with a commissioner, and these players need to become employees of that league. They're still students, but students can have jobs, right? Happens all the time, right? I mean, I had a job while I was a student athlete. I was employed by a law firm for a summer, got paid, worked 5 days a week in the summer, worked out in the morning, took class that summer. It's totally possible, right? You can carve out a situation where these student athletes are employees, maybe not of the school, but of this league.
Sure.
And that league, as a league, generates revenue, right? Contracts, et cetera, et cetera. That league, mirror like the NFL, right? There's a commissioner in that league, right? They got to pay for the kids' health insurance. They got to, there's got to be a pension. There's got to be whatever, all that stuff. It's complicated just creating out of thin air, but it's really not as complicated when you have examples all across the world of professional sports leagues. Exactly. And you're just like, it's not like this is a startup and you're the founder of Google. Okay.
Right.
You're like, okay, let's figure it out. And then there's a governing body within that league, just like that everyone abides by, right?
Exactly.
There's Steve Ross and Rob Kraft and all of these people, they abide by the same rules. They may not like them, players may not like that there's a salary cap and things aren't guaranteed. And that's why sometimes there's strikes. That's why there's a collective bargaining agreement between the owners.
Yeah, I was just about to say, Artie. So you might be at home asking yourself, why aren't students considered as employees yet? Well, folks, because they don't want the opportunity for these students to collective bargain. That is the
But
key.
In reality, it's cheaper to
That's what
bargain. It's cheaper to do it. It's probably more expensive like early on, but over the course of time, particularly where it is going right now, it's cheaper and it makes more sense.
And you get market value, right? So
totally.
For an offensive lineman that you really want, he can't realistically ask you for $6 million if everyone in that market and that type of caliber player is making $2 million.
And players will be held accountable.
Exactly.
As will coaches, because this will all, okay, Lane Kiffin, you want to go to LSU? Well, here's what LSU needs to do to even entertain a conversation with you. And there's a certain amount of rules that go along with that, right? Like, right now, Kubiak, who is the offensive coordinator, he is Coach Kubiak, Gary Kubiak's son, is the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks. He is a top candidate for one of the 3 remaining jobs John Heva coaches. Guess what? He can't officially interview and sign with one of those teams if he does until after the Super Bowl because he is coaching in the Super Bowl. Okay? The NFL has this ball. Yes, it's only 32 teams. I get it. But guess what? Like, you can expand it to 60 teams or 80 teams and have a model of what college football is. Right. And until they do that, you're going to have all these virtue signaling, which is great, but it means nothing. And again, I do believe that that's where it's going to go. I think these players will be not independent contractors, but they will be employees of a league. And that league is, the college football league, right? Or the NCAA college football professional league or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And no, they're not. They are not employees of the school. They are employed by a separate entity, which is a professionalized college sports league.
Right.
That's it, right?
Yeah, totally agree. I totally agree, man. And don't get me wrong, folks, too, because there's a lot of issues that we're talking about, right? That's what we're going over. But football still play between the lines, and I still love it. So
Totally.
right,
Same.
we'll be okay. I still love the product, and I think because I love it, I want to see some change. I see some change, effective change, and fixing these issues that we've come really to hate. So, Artie, man, I'll let you go, dude. I know we run a good bit of your time off the board, so want to end it there, my man. So I really appreciate you jumping on with me, talking about football. Guys, thanks for watching here, whether it's on YouTube or you're listening, wherever you get your podcast. We appreciate you. And until next time, my man, go Dogs.
Go Dogs.